Welcome to the webinar. This, as I alluded to, this is the open house for the Yale Global Executive Leadership Program. My name is Kristen Sorick-West. I'm the Director of Marketing at Executive Education here at the Yale School of Management. I have the privilege of moderating today's conversation between these three fantastic participants of our YGELP program that you see on the screen in front of you. As I kick things off, a few housekeeping items. I'm expecting this webinar to last about 45 minutes, though it might run long depending on the questions that we get asked and the conversation that we're carrying on. We encourage you to send us questions and comments throughout the webinar using the chat and the Q&A features. I will be moderating the chat and Q&A, and my executive education colleague, Rachel Mileto, will be moderating the chat as well. Give us a quick hello in the chat, would you please, Rachel? Thank you. Finally, we are recording this webinar, and the recording will be distributed afterwards to all webinar registrants. So let's kick things off. Let's keep going. We're here today to talk about the Yale Global Executive Leadership Program and what you can expect should you apply to the program and attend. You've heard me say it a couple times, Yale Global Executive Leadership Program. We call it here YGELP for short. It is an on-campus, in-person executive program hosted here at the Yale School of Management. It exists to expand and improve the impact of leaders like you. And the program is held over 8 months with participants coming to campus for three modules, 1 week or 2 weeks long. During their time on campus, participants will learn from renowned scholars and industry leaders, gaining global perspectives, building their executive leadership skill set, and elevating their capacity to drive organizational success. Between modules, participants reconnect in virtual meetings to catch up and continue the discussion started in the class. We have these three wonderful past participants on the call. We have Gloria Berlanga, Lonnie Garris, and Jakub Bruskowski. Gloria Berlanga is a colonel in the United States Army and currently serves as the Chief of Joint Staff at the Rhode Island Army National Guard. In this role and in past positions, she focuses on enhancing transparency, trust, and reimagining talent management and leader development programs. An Army engineer officer and a combat veteran. Her awards include the Legion of Merit and Bronze Star Medal. It's great to have you, Gloria.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone.
Lonnie Garris is on the call with us today as well. He is the co-founder and CEO of Cool Amps Energy Solutions, where he leads a team of technologists developing novel methods to recover critical materials from spent lithium-ion batteries to support the nation's transition to electrification. He served in the U.S. Air Force as a career intelligence and cyber professional, achieving the rank of colonel. Lonnie was instrumental in maturing the Air Force's premier intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance weapons system. Hi, Lonnie.
Hello, great to be here.
And Jakub Bruskowski is a VP at Mitutoyo, a globally renowned precision measurement solution provider. Jakub has extensive experience in international business and manufacturing operations. He has led Mitutoyo's growth in Eastern Europe, establishing the company as a market leader and expanding operations into the Baltic countries and Ukraine. Jakub has experience in navigating transitioning economies, creating procedures, and addressing cultural challenges in various international settings. Welcome, Jakub.
Welcome, good morning. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. So Gloria and Lonnie were in our 5th YGELP cohort, which began in 2019 and due to the pandemic wrapped up in 2022. And Jakub was in our 6th cohort, which began and happily wrapped up in the same year in 2022 as well. So Lonnie, let's start with you. What were you looking for in a professional development program when you were sizing up YGELP among other options?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Kristen. You know, when I retired from the military in 2017, by most standards, I had a successful military career, and I was just looking for really what could be my second act. How can I sort of replicate what I did in the military here? And I started looking at Yale and other schools, their executive education programs, and seeing what they had to offer. And to me, Yale really had the superior program with a focus on extended time on campus. That was a key, that the faculty wanted you to be on campus and learn. And quite honestly, the benefits at the end were something that really stood out to me in terms of alumni status, making you feel being part of the Yale culture. And the other ones seem more like, okay, yeah, you came for your 2 or 3 weeks. Here's your certificate, and you're done here. But as you can see, we're continuing on with the lifelong education. That's what I like about Yale.
I love that phrase, second act. You retired from the first act and moving on to the second.
Exactly.
I see you nodding your head, Gloria. Was it similar for you?
Absolutely. I think Lonnie hit on a lot of the key points. For me, YGELP was important and differentiated from other programs because of its focus at the senior management level. At that point in my career in 2019, I was moving into a new position in the C-suite, and I had exhausted the military education up to that point in my career. I wanted something that would focus specifically on the problem sets and the challenges that you face as a member of the C-suite or just below the C-suite that can help you address and overcome the challenges and lead your organizations. So very intrigued by the YGELP curriculum, as well as the 360 assessment and the cohort, right? The ability to be surrounded by and learn from these tremendous leaders who are all at the CEO, COO, the C-suite level, was truly the game changer for me.
And Kristen, if I could add one thing based off what Gloria just said, Gloria and I have great contacts in the government and the military, right? Our network is superior there. But, when talk about a second act in business, being at YGELP, it just expanded our network now on the business side here to levels we never would have gotten before.
Interesting. I've heard from other past participants that sometimes it's isolating to be so senior in an organization and further in a specific industry, and that is an appeal, is to branch out and to find people who have similar challenges to you professionally, but who are outside of your industry and can offer that unique perspective or those unique connections. Absolutely.
And I think the problem sets that we are facing as leaders, regardless of your sector, whether it be military, business, whatever, they're volatile, they're complex, they're adaptive, they're unconventional. And it's going to require a systems leadership approach of leaders throughout all sects. So the more you can learn from other people, the more you can expand your network, the better off I think you're going to be to meet the challenges in the future.
And you are absolutely right, Lonnie, that is all, and Gloria, that it's being within the C-suite and or right underneath it, it makes you a little bit lonely. And YGELP for me, when I started looking for that, was pretty similar to what you guys already mentioned, was the on campus time. When and especially that my cohort was a little bit bigger, because I think we got there, correct me if I'm wrong, Kristen, but I think it was compressed, I think from 2 or 1.5 recruitments. And basically I had a chance to learn not only from the curriculum, not only from the great minds that are at Yale and were guest speakers on our lectures, but also and predominantly during those 5 weeks on the campus from my colleagues from all over the world and from all different branches. We had, I think, 8 current or veterans from the armed services, not only from US. We had people from basically almost all continents and from governmental, non-governmental, business sector, and that was a tremendous experience as well.
Do any of you still stay in touch with your cohort members? Do you use their network that you've developed at YGELP?
Absolutely.
Can you provide an example of, like, recently, of who you might have been in touch with, or on what type of topic?
So personal and professional. So from the professional standpoint, a lot of the cohort members, a few of them reached back to when we were doing our leader development series to help military members understand how to translate their experience into a successful job application as well as interview process. So we had 3 members of the YGELP cohort who were senior businessmen, either CEOs or COOs, come in and be part of that panel, and they were wonderful. And they have continued to foster and provide guidance and recommendations on resume building and interview techniques and all these kind of things, you know, on their own time, which has been truly helpful for our folks. And I think it's illustrative just kind of the kind of relations that you can develop with members of your team.
Yeah, for me, I actually went into business with one. One of my co-founders of my company, Cool Amps, is part of my cohort. And so, yeah, we've been going strong since.
Amazing. Who is that?
Tom Madden.
That's so great. I didn't realize that you met Tom at YGELP.
Yeah, he was in our first cohort. Then he had to take a break. But yeah, he was there in our first session.
What about you, Jakub?
Well, for me, it's a little bit different because staying on the other side of the, I mean, being based in Europe, being based in Poland, it's hard to, let's say, keep in touch. How do you call it, socially? But when it comes to business, the same with the network, with the enlargement of the network. I get a couple of questions even recently from one of my friends from our cohort. That wants to do business in Europe side and said, hey, I'm coming over, let's meet, let's talk, let's maybe you can help me out with the business. Wherever I'm visiting US, it's never a dull moment because you get friends all over the place, and suddenly you find yourself needing definitely more holiday than you would anticipate if you want to visit just a few of them. So on both social and professional level, we still keep in touch. We still have our group going pretty strong.
We have somebody who has raised their hand. I'd like to just pass the mic quickly to Dia to ask your question. So Dia, I'm putting you off mute. So you should be able to unmute yourself and ask your question if you wish. I don't hear you, Dia. So if you have a question, I'm going to pull you off of mic. And if you want to drop it into the chat, please do. I want to know, so about your cohort experience, we were just talking about cohorts, about your networks that you've developed and how they've stayed with you after you left the program. What was it like in the classroom when you were talking with one another from, while you were listening to sessions from Jeff Sonnenfeld or from any one of the other faculty members? What was it like having people from around the world being in the classroom with you along this journey?
It's been great to hear so many points of view, and sometimes to have a really difficult and really, I would say, strong, even argumentative discussions on basically whichever subject was presented to us, be it Professor Chance with influence, or splitting the pie, or any of Professor Sonnenfeld's famous introduction and videos. We definitely had a discussion, and we were presenting absolutely, I would say, the full spectrum of views, and we were able to argument that, and those arguments coming in from different cultural backgrounds, different sometimes historical backgrounds. One funny story, what we were actually talking with one of the guys who've been also a veteran from Air Force. I don't know, Lonnie, if you know Pete Tortorici. He retired. No, he retired last year, and actually also half of the cohort showed up to his retirement ceremony. But we were discussing once, and just saying about some drills that are being run right now for the kids. You know, when you have active shooter on school and whatnot, and they were asking me if we had any kind of that stuff in Europe, and I said, well, last drills that I remember were back in the 80s in my primary school when we were learning how to hide from you guys. And that was a little bit that caused a little bit of a disconcert, and we started a huge discussion on that one. So gives you completely different perspectives and that was I think one of the biggest advantages during the classroom time.
Yes, certainly lots of lively discussions. And I recall during our last session, and Gloria, you remember this. This was right when Russia invaded Ukraine. You know, two of our cohort members, one actually lived in Ukraine and was fighting, right?
Daniel.
Yeah, Daniil. And yep. We had another member who immigrated to the US from Russia a long time ago. And it got a little tense talking about the war there. So, but, you know, everything was respectful. You know, at that time, Professor Sonnenfeld had started his list of companies that were getting out of Russia and those that are staying in. He was sort of highlighting that. And so things got a little, you know, I wouldn't say tense, but, you know, it was a good discussion to talk these things through. Gloria, you want to add anything to that?
No, I think that's a perfect illustration. I mean, if you can think about what was going on at the time. So this was July, right, when we had our last in-person cohort. And, you know, the war at that time, or the invasion, had been going on for about 4 months or so, right? So Danil was sitting, and then Constantine, and being very respectful and hearing each other out. And we just listened. I mean, first of all, we were just ecstatic that Danil and his family were okay. You know, that was the first thing, because they just returned to the country the night before the war began. And so to have him be able to come out and spend time with us, we were all just relieved to see him, and everybody was physically okay. But to be able to have that kind of interaction in a professional manner, right, and yet still have the personal interaction, I don't know how many other programs you might find that.
And the quality time you spend with one another is not just in the classroom, but outside of it as well. And you have many long days. I say that with a smile, because I know that sometimes after the first couple of days, I see participants leave the classroom and they're just exhausted. Is that how any of you felt after just being in a classroom listening to these speakers for, you know, between 8 and 5 for 3 days in a row, 5 days in a row, 6 days in a row? Just me?
No,
yep.
Well, not me. You know, I look forward to the interactions at dinner, right? Hey, we ate well, right? We made sure we took care of each other, ate well, and if you drank, you could drink well. You know, I'm born and raised in the New Haven area, so I was hanging out with the cohort mates. You know, my dad is there, my brother's there. I spent less time with them, and you know, I definitely stayed with the classmates here, because it was such a rich environment of learning outside the classroom.
I've heard you, each of you mention some of our professors in turn, like Zoe Chance, you mentioned Jakub. I wanted to know if there were any sessions, and you mentioned Gloria at the top, the 360 assessment, if there were any sessions, speakers, professors, or activities that stood out to you the most as being something that stretched you when you came into the program.
For me, the 360 assessment was very helpful. To put it into context, when I first arrived there, I had just been promoted to full colonel, and I was suffering from a huge case of imposter syndrome, right? So I was just trying to not say a lot, you know, assess, learn from everyone who was speaking, that kind of thing. And gradually, and as the course went on, and especially through the 360 assessment, gain a lot of insight into strengths and weaknesses and ways to enhance skill set. So that opportunity to have that assessment completed and have some thorough feedback, because it's your superiors or supervisors, your subordinates, your peers. It's a tremendous opportunity that potentially you have not had in the past. So that was also a discriminator for me.
And we do that like by design. That is meant to be a key part of the program, is that 360 leadership assessment, which is it's meant to, you do it at the very beginning so you can learn from it throughout your entire time with Yale and on campus.
Yeah, I would say, you know, when you first arrived there, you know, Professor Sonnenfeld, he described the program as providing executives an executive toolkit that they can reach into to help them here. And, you know, most of us in the cohort had advanced degrees. You know, I've got an MBA. There's quite a few of us with MBAs, PhDs, lawyers, right? So we've got the basics, you know, of accounting and all that. And the program goes over that a little bit, but it also went into things that we were never taught in business school, like non-market strategy. I remember that session on building a non-market strategy to, you know, increase your brand awareness. Also, the behavioral economics part on the rationale and the psychology of why buying decisions are made. You know, that's just not something you get through normal business school. So that's what I remember particularly.
Yeah, for me, I would say pretty similar to Gloria, but my imposter syndrome came rather from the place where I came from. Because right before COVID, right before the pandemic, I had a lot of personal issues in my life, and that also I was still clearing that up when I got to Yale. But when it comes to the session itself, the 360 was great start, and I would say for me, absolute top was to be able to be in the same room with Indra Nui and to be able to talk with her on the real challenges of running a multinational, multi-level organization in a global environment, being from let's say I don't want to call it like that, but okay, minority perspective, or let's say a person that was first of many, first Indian American woman in Fortune 500 company and all of that. And this, I think it was supposed to be 1 hour session, but of course Professor Sonnenfeld made sure that it lasted a lot longer than expected. So that was one of the huge impacts on my life, both personally and professionally.
We've mentioned Jeff Sonnenfeld a couple of times. If you haven't researched this professor of ours, he's our faculty director, and like whatever I say now, I feel will just not be enough, because he's such a presence and such a force in this program, and he brings so much expertise and just in perspective on the challenges and transitions that chief executives regardless of function, COO, CFO, CEO, the challenges they face. He has steeped himself in that level of strategic management of an organization and leadership of an organization. He brings so much expertise and so many connections to this program. Indra Nui being one of them. She also happens to be a beloved Yale SOM grad. So I'm so glad that she was able to speak to your cohort, Yaku.
That was amazing experience. That was really an amazing experience.
We have a fantastic question in the chat from a webinar attendee about the coaching framework, the panelist views. I think this person is asking about, could you elaborate on one-on-one experience versus a group experience, what the coaching sessions are like, and some of the more small group interactions versus the individualized interactions that are a part of this program. So let's start with you, Gloria. What is your recollection? What is your experience like of working in small groups versus individually during the program?
Well, I think both of them had their benefits. In particularly, the one-on-one feedback from the 360 assessment was extraordinarily helpful because it gives you the privacy and the ability to just dig deep, right? And go line by line into this very detailed, 25-page report into your strengths and weaknesses. And these individuals are available to you as you go throughout the course for feedback and motivation in some cases, or just course correction. So that was extraordinarily helpful. And then the small group piece, which is prevalent, and Lonnie, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we had it throughout all 3 of our modules. The small group piece was impactful as well, because for me to be in an environment of entrepreneurs, right, after 34 years in the military, or that point in time, 30 years in the military, it's a different mindset, and to learn from them and to be able to kind of feed off of their energy and their thought process, and it was just extraordinarily liberating. Lonnie, does that make sense?
Yeah, I remember the small groups more. Yeah, I do actually, I do remember the for the 360 feedback. That was very insightful, but the small group we had a lot of those for different professors. And we're usually under a time crunch to solve a problem, as I recall, and just seeing how, one person would be the spokesperson, how they led the small group, and everyone had a turn to go lead there, and look at their leadership style, how they managed information quickly and then regurgitate it back out to the larger group.
For us, we had also, when it comes to the 360 assessment, we had I think during the first 2 weeks we did most of our one-on-one sessions, and then both, I think, Roger, forgot the name of the I don't want to misspell the second guy's name, but they also were present with us on the next module, and also after we finished with YGELP, we still I know at least myself, and I know of at least 2 of my colleagues, we're still staying in touch with our guys and working on our progress, like Gloria, like you mentioned, course correction, which in my case was a pretty huge deal. And I'm still working on it, and it's work in progress, hopefully getting better with every day, but I will have to do another 360 to make sure that I'm on the right track.
So we do tweak the program structure based on participant feedback every time around. So you'll have to remind me for each of you, what were the coaching sessions like for your particular cohorts? Right now, for this incoming cohort, there are individualized coaching sessions, and our webinar attendee is asked, are the coaches Yale employees? Do participants continue with them post-program? The coaches that we bring in are not Yale employees proper. They are experts. They are expert coaches, but they have their own companies. They run their own businesses outside of Yale. And we bring in their expertise to offer to participants. And some do elect to continue coaching with them and hiring them directly for their coaching services after the program. And what was that like for you, Jakub? Let's start with you. You had individualized coaching sessions, as I recall?
Yes, we had them because we started, I think, also different from all the others, because we started with the modules in May. It was we were supposed to start earlier, but because of the pandemic, we had to postpone, and we had to redo the whole schedule. But yes, we did have the individual coaching. Then together then there was one I think summary session of, let's say, what are the group trends, how they viewed us, what they saw as from their perspective, and basically, I think, as far as I remember, it was before each module, at least we got the check with them. Hey, on the monthly check-in, hey, how are you guys doing? Do any of you need any kind of, post, let's say, any kind of help in the meantime. And then after YGELP, they will still offering their services and really doing great job with us even post the program.
What was it like for you two, Lonnie and Gloria? You had a very different on-campus experience because or just program experience because of the pandemic.
Yeah, just you want me to talk about the 360 or just in general about our extended time?
About the 360 and coaching specifically. And then we'll come back to it because I do want to get into what it was like to check in virtually between modules. And I know that's something that your cohort had to do just as a matter of circumstances. But first, let's talk about coaching.
Yeah, I'm sure everyone on this call has had some sort of self-assessment exam for business. But this was unlike anything I've been through that I think anyone will go through, in that they're not only asking you questions, but they get the emails of your, some of your direct reports, your peers, and even your superiors. And there's parts that they have to fill out, and they put this formula together. And really what they do is they interpret your strengths and weaknesses, right? Everyone going into this YGELP program, you probably already have your leadership style. You should have your leadership style already. They're not here to tell you your leadership style, but they're here to interpret what the data says from all these various points, your subordinates, your superiors, and tell you where you can, potentially improve here. And that was the value I saw in it, right? Like I said previously, business school taught you sort of like the basics of business, and this just took it to the next level here with the 360 and all the programs.
And were all of your sessions done in person, or were some of them virtual?
Both. So initially we had the initial feedback session, but I contacted them after the whole program was done as well. I think a couple times. So, and just got more feedback, more interpretation, if you will, of some of the results. That was the true value of what they bought.
So between modules, as you all have experienced, you come to campus for 3 modules, and then you check in virtually between modules. So what our incoming cohort is more likely to experience is something that Jakub experienced. And I wanted to just throw the question over to him first of what were those check-ins like? What were those check-ins like? And then how did you apply what you learned between modules and brought to the table during your check-ins to share?
Well, I think only had 2 of the check-ins because we were, as I told you, we were a little bit more concise within the year. But on those ones, there was always something related to a current situation, or let's say a current occurrences in the world, because yes, during that time the war in Ukraine was in full swing. We still had issues with supply chain. We still had issues with some other stuff going on in the Middle East and in the Far East as well. And that was something that, based on the current experience, we were basically checking, okay, did we manage to actually do our homework and really work on the issues that we were talking about, let's say between ourselves or in the classroom, saying like, okay, we were looking into this matter or this aspect of leadership. Did you actually check this? And everybody was participating in that. But we were pretty unruly bunch, to be honest, and it was pretty hard to keep it all professional, because we started to veer off in a different subjects and so on and so on. So it was I would say still 65% more social events, 35% let's say business or course related. But I think that was a little bit of a specific to our cohort, to be honest.
So you use the virtual check-ins as a time to reconnect personally as well as professionally.
Exactly.
That's great.
Exactly.
But let me also say, based off what Jacob said, we had some fun times too, right? And you learn some powerful lessons here. One I recall is the Legos that we use to go over agile, the importance of software. for executives to understand the power of software, and we use Legos to basically, do runs and iterate and build the final product that we had to build, which was a city, I believe. So that was a fun exercise.
And what were your virtual check-ins like? You began the program in 2019, but you didn't finish it until 2022 because of the pandemic. So when, if you could give everyone an idea of how your program experience broke down chronologically.
Yeah, because of COVID, initially COVID, no one was allowed on campus. And then we decided, I think for the second part of our cohort, we did 2 weeks all on the web, right? And professors got on, right? And then we finally came back on campus for the third year. But because we just didn't take a 2-year hiatus. We had monthly check-ins. So it was great, Gloria, right? We got to see probably more than any other cohort in terms of guest speakers and topics discussed.
Absolutely. And I think, frankly, the timing with the pandemic and the ability for us to reach back to each other helped many of our businesses adapt and overcome some of the challenges that we were facing. Because honestly, you look back at the beginning of that, right? And no one knew how to manage, right? How are we going to bring people back to work? How are we, going through, how are we going to test? All the challenges that individually you faced, right? We were able to discuss that on a monthly basis and share ideas, share lessons learned. I know there's probably not quantifiable data that will show exactly how beneficial that was, but I do think that made a difference for each of us in our work.
So we have a couple more minutes left in this call. And I just want to encourage people to continue sending out questions. Take a moment. You can drop them into the Q&A or the webinar chat. Thank you so much for the questions already. And I wanted just to go back to some of those, to the application of the material that you learn between each module. So we have intentionally stretched out your time, the modules across the year. Ideally, granted, Lonnie, Gloria, we got interrupted by COVID, but the idea is when you come to campus, you learn a great deal, and then you leave and you go back to your day-to-day lives and you apply what you've learned. And I want to know, what was that like for you? Did that rhythm work for you? Do you have any recollection of moments where you immediately applied, or you could apply something that you got from the classroom into your workspace or even personal lives?
I applied almost immediately. I was taking copious notes throughout module 1. I just started the position as the chief of staff. I had almost 20 direct reports and 400 full-time employees. So just being able to learn from some of the folks there about their leadership programs, their talent management, how they addressed different issues. I was able throughout that 2-week time frame to really develop a framework and implemented it immediately upon return to the organization. So that had some, and it's continuing to bear fruit, I think. Very positive internal reviews on the process. So
I'm glad to hear. Congratulations.
Well, it's just learning from so many of these phenomenal leaders, and that was the overarching theme, that leadership is pretty fundamental across sectors, right? And gaining a respect and an admiration for some of these exceptional folks, and just the different nuances. We had presentations during lunch sometimes that we would develop. People had ideas, hey, can you talk about this? So we would develop a panel and come speak, and we addressed a lot of different issues that folks saw as holes in their gap of knowledge, right? And that they wanted filled. So long answer to a short question, but I think you can apply many of these things immediately, and they can have a lasting impact.
I can definitely second that. I can definitely second that. It's for me, it basically started on not only during the classroom, but basically on the flight home, which took a little bit. But instead of usually catching some sleep, I was drawing out, okay, how I can do it, how I can also transmit to my management team the things that I learned, because that was one thing that one of the things that YGELP gave me is also strengthen my ability to communicate a lot better, which was, I think, the first thing. And that immediately started to show and started to I see this change also right now within the company, and people all around me see that, as you said, not only in professional but also in private life, and that gives me a huge deal of satisfaction for sure.
Yeah, I would add that yes, I started utilizing information right away, because this is not stale information, right? This is cutting edge research. All these professors were carefully curated, just done the research, validated it, and business research, and so you had it right there for you to use right away.
What was it like to leave the office for a week, 2 weeks at a time? Was it helpful to have that time away? Were you given any, were the direct reports begging for you to come back immediately?
Actually, I think. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Jacob.
I think it gave my organization, me and my organization, a little bit of perspective how it is, to really work, let's say, manage certain things remotely from a different time zone. It worked honestly quite well. We didn't see that much of a hiccups, apart maybe from one or two angry customers who couldn't reach me when they wanted. But apart from that, it came out. The first one was hard, but the next one came pretty smooth, which also shows that, as Lonnie said, when you apply what you saw as really cutting edge information, cutting edge approach to business and to leadership, if you apply it right away, you can benefit from it right away. Sorry, Gloria, for cutting you.
No, absolutely concur. Absolutely concur.
Well, thank you all. We have reached 11:45 local time, Eastern for me. So I'm going to just start wrapping things up a little bit, but if any final questions come to mind, please send them our way in the chat or the Q&A. I'm happy to follow up with you afterwards. I just want to say thank you to all of our wonderful panelists. Thank you for sharing your time with us today, answering our questions, giving us your perspectives. We truly appreciate it. For those on the call who are interested in applying, please do explore our website. The application will open sometime next week, and we will be sending out a notification when it does go live. And if you have any questions about your application, you have any questions about the program, my contact information along with additional resources to learn more will be shared with you in post-webinar email. One of those resources actually is a virtual coffee chat, where my colleague Joanne Legler, who's the Senior Director of Learning Partnerships, will hop on a small group call virtually and answer questions in a group. The next one being hosted is September 27th at 2 p.m. and you'll get a link to register if you're interested in participating in that. So without further ado, thank you again, Jakub, Lonnie, Gloria. Thank you so much for your time today. And we wish you the best of luck. Please stay in touch with us. We love hearing from our YGELP alum. And thank you everyone on the call for joining us. I appreciate it. We wish you have a great rest of your day.